Hey everyone, Richard Metal Fan here, bringing you guys an old school album review. And today we're going to be looking into one of my favorite artists of all time and favorite fans if you're into like the just old school straight up heavy metal stuff. Today we're going to be looking into In the Shadows by Mercyful Fate. This was released on July 6, 1993 through Metal Blade Records. Now, this is my first time ever talking about Mercyful Fate on the channel. Of course, I've covered the first two King Diamond albums, but never Mercyful Fate. But yeah, there's this sort of like King Diamond's like main band that's been around like prior to his solo stuff. And this is the band's third album after like their two albums, which would be 1983's Melissa, which is their debut, and 1984's Don't Break the Oath. And it was like after that the band sort of like broke up, went on a hiatus or something, while King Diamond released some couple solo albums in between that. But it was like a long gap between Don't Break the Oath, which came out in 1984, and this album from In the Shadows, which came out in 93. This is like, it's sort of like their reunion album after they like broke up from musical differences from what I've looked up. And they sort of did like a little reunion tour and decided, you know what, why don't we make a new album? And this album is a pretty good album. But it's a great, after sort of like breaking up for a couple years, they sort of like got back together and this stuff. One thing to know about is the production. And the production on here is pretty solid. Like everything is where it needs to be. Well, I don't even know how to describe the vocals. Like King Diamond is a machine. Like his falsettos and stuff is just really just insanely great. One of the best vocalists I've heard ever. Guitar wise, Hank Sherman and Michael Denner's lead playing, and just the riffs on this album is just really great. The bass playing is pretty audible. You could definitely hear it well in the mix, and the drumming is pretty solid. But yeah, without further ado, let's dive into this album track by track. Now, the album opens up with the song Egypt, which starts off with like a short acoustic intro, bursts into noise, and then the king howls like Egypt, which is a solid riff accompanying for it. And for like, if you're a fan of like Mercyful Fate, it would be a moment to stand up and shout, "Fuck yeah, they're back!" And just the guitarists on here showed that they're still up for the challenge with some really great riffs and some blazing solos. And just the drumming on here is really, really great. And like I said, like I feel like in a way this album, how it opens up, it feels like a throwback to Curse of the Pharaohs off of the Melissa. And sort of like the themes and the tones of the song certainly reflect for it. And then the next track, The Bell Witch, is very strange in the slow track at first. It has sort of like a haunting theme behind it. And about like a minute into the track it picks up to sort of like that classic Mercyful Fate sound. It's a good way to follow up the opener. The Old Oak is one of the album's highlights in my opinion. And it's about 9 minutes in length. And this song is very long and very consistent. It's some sort of the best work from both the vocals and the guitars on the album, and I really love the guitars pretty much show really like a challenge in their speed and pace with some excellent timing, and just wow, it's a pretty kick-ass song. And then the next two tracks on here being Shadows and A Gruesome Time almost kind of seem somewhat like filler tracks in a way, but it's not to say that these two tracks are not terrible. They just seem a bit underwhelming compared to like the first three. However, some of the standout moments do emerge, particularly in A Gruesome Time for like the guitar sections in there. And these kind of like two tracks filled the gap until the album hits back with more the wonderful consistency with the next song, 13 Invitations. A thunderous drum roll leads into another solid track. This is sort of like a groovy kind of track with a very catchy chorus, and it has sort of its slow moments, but once again this track is another example of staying consistent between sort of like the slow and steady sections. And then it goes straight into Legend of the Headless Rider, another long rocker. This track is kind of a little bit strange to me. I mean, it has a very slow and gritty pace to it at first, but the track title itself can describe with the theme, and there's some really great moments for here. And the King here, however, feels a little bit too slow and can be somewhat dull in its early moments. But around 3 minutes The track doesn't manage to speed up, and it ends on a more fantastic note on there. And then we go into Is That You, Melissa? So the name alone sounds like an awesome some way to some song, and it just wow, this is a good song. And a lot of people, this is honestly technically would be the closer of the album, but this version I got has a bonus track, which is actually a re-recording from their 1982 compilation album, which would be Return of the Vampire. But this version has Return of the Vampire in 1983, and this actually has a guest appearance on this album. Playing drums on the track is Lars Ulrich from Metallica doing the drums on here, and I think it's a pretty good song. I haven't heard the original yet, but damn, the song is pretty kick-ass. Now, overall, In the Shadow, but by Mercyful Fate is sort of like a great album. It's a good return to form. I mean, I really like this album. And I feel like this was sort of like that they're back after like taking like a 9-year breakup hiatus, whatever you want to technically classify it as. But if I had to give this album a score, I'd probably give this a solid 8 out of 10. It's a really good album. I would highly recommend it if you're a fan of King Diamond or Mercyful Fate. But yeah, that's my review of In the Shadows, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about it, and I'll see you all in the next video, and keep it metal.